So the first phase of the walls in 2014 and 15. The second was last year. Just before I start, though, I just want to give a little bit of a background to the deterioration and why it happened. We're probably tempted to say it's just age and neglect, and it certainly was, but there are other factors that I just wanted to go over before I started on the description of the project of the restoration. Next one. So by 2014, you're probably all aware of the state of the wall. It was in advanced deterioration, crumbling, and in fact, just the next one, it had collapsed in areas. In fact, and the next slide is kind of a picture of the collapse. There are better ones, but in fact, between the two phases, there was another large collapse that was on the north side. And the next. So the reasons it was in such a deteriorated state were more than just age and neglect. There were what conservators call inherent vices, and that had to do with the design of the wall and the materials. So this is the next one. Yeah, the stone that they used was a local stone, probably from the escarpment, and it's a fragile stone, so it wasn't a great stone to build a large wall. And the other issue was in the design of the wall. It's quite a high one, over 11 feet, and a very not very deep foundation, so it didn't support well this tall wall. So that was a design problem. So the stone was an inherent problem. It was cracked very easily, and with the freeze-thaw cycles in our environment, that contributed quite a bit to the deterioration of the wall. The next one. So another problem was lack of maintenance and poor maintenance, or ill-advised maintenance, I guess I should say. So a wall, a mortared wall, needs to have inspection and repointing every number of years, areas where it deteriorates because of the limestone. So that wasn't done, and well, effectively. And you can see this is actually a buttress. You can see how it split right through. It wasn't kind of holding the wall up. And another problem was the type of mortar or the type of consolidant that was used in these some repairs, and that was like a harder cement, like a Portland cement base mortar, which contributes to the deterioration as well. Next one. It was filled with rubble, and a lot of that, because of the mortar deteriorating, it wasn't kind of structurally wasn't sound. This is Bill Robertson. Robertson Restoration was the company that was responsible for both phases. They did a beautiful job. This is Bill Robertson. Unfortunately, Bill died between the two phases. His son headed up the second phase last year, and his grandson. So the next one. This is an image of the foundation. There was some archaeology, quite a bit of archaeology that was done before these projects to check the condition of the foundation. Here you can see this is just 3 feet, and loss of mortar, loss of consolidant between the stones. So it wasn't an effective foundation for a number of reasons. And the next one. This is an image of, at the foundation layer, a tree root, but there was the vine roots that were quite thick and aggressive, and tree roots that, for trees that are close to the foundation, were moving the wall as well. The next one. So the two phases, the first one in 2014 and 15, this is the coach house, obviously, the gates, the dovecote. So this was phase one. It was quite a complex. That phase was difficult. The second phase last year was from this point right around to the corner of the east wall. And so I think, yeah, so the first phase, there were a number of things that had to be done. There were 3 actually projects within that project. One was rebuild. The columns and archway had to be rebuilt. There was some part of the wall that was somewhat stable, and buttresses could be, new buttresses, concrete buttresses could be installed. And then the third phase, there was something called Syntec anchors. And so these anchors, stainless steel pins, would go down through the top of the wall into the foundation. And the anchors have a sock around them. So it's put through, and then the sock is filled with mortar. So it acts as a consolidant and something that will keep the existing wall together. This is just the archaeology that was done in quite a few areas. This is what was done in 2013. There was more archaeology, and of course monitoring the whole project were archaeologists throughout the project. But these are the pits that were investigative pits that were done. There was another one into this, because it's 2013, it doesn't show the 2017. There was another one done here where there was a building existing at the end of the east wall. And a midden just outside that, there were 6,000 artifacts found in this small area. Not really exciting artifacts, bits of glass and ceramics. Now, there were two only interesting, I've been asked before about archaeology, there are only two somewhat interesting pieces. One was a corn pipe, and intact, probably from one of the workers, and then a sculptural head, and we think it was from when the nuns were in the coach house, and it was statuary from the gardens. So the next one. So you can see everything was dismantled. They were new. The next one. This just shows the state of the wall, interior, just split. I mean, the whole wall was on the verge of collapse. Amazing that only two areas had collapsed because of the poor condition of the interior. The next one. These are new footings for the archway and the columns. And a lot of those stones were not reusable. They would, when it was disassembled and cleaned, so all the mortar cleaned off the stones, often and mostly in a restoration, they'll number those stones and put them back where they belong. They couldn't in this project. The stones were too fragile, most of them split. So, and only 50% were reusable. So they had to find new stone that looked similar to the others. It's going to be incorporated with original stone. And there was a quarry in Owen Sound where they're slightly yellowish. So if you look at the wall, the completed wall, you can see where the replacement stones are. But to get big enough pieces for over the archways, they needed to outsource. So yeah, so this is the new foundations. The next one, and then a rebuild. You see these yellow ones, slightly yellow. It was great. In the second phase, Jamie is the name of the son, Jamie Robertson. He asked if he could find enough stone on the collapsed walls on the north end of the property that were just lying on the ground under bushes, whether they could go and see what they could reclaim from those. And we said yes, because they were just lying on the ground and deteriorating. So he found enough in the second phase to incorporate into that whole east wall. Okay, the next one. This is the second phase where they're dismantling the whole east side of the wall has been rebuilt. There wasn't a way to save any of that wall. Between the two collapsed areas, there was one wall that was fenced because it was so in danger of collapsing and a safety hazard. So the second phase was all rebuilt. Next one. This is the second phase, digging down. Yeah, there was nothing found here at all. There's an archaeologist on site the whole time. The next one. This is the clean stone and building the footings, or the finished footings. The foundation. And because a lot of the work was done, we were really in a time crunch. The second phase was a Canada 150 community grant, partially funded by that, and there was a deadline to have it done all last year, so it was quite a crunch. So a lot of the work was done when it was tarped and heated, and the tarping, you may know, it was stayed up until I think March or April because the curing of the of the mortar had to take place over 2 or 3 months. What else can I tell you about that? Just the rebar reinforcements. Okay, then the next one. This is the completed second wall. You can see we've reinstated this door. It was filled in. Actually, all of the smaller doors were filled in. There was another one at this end, but the engine, and we wanted that reopened as well, but the engineer felt that it would structurally compromise that corner. So that is still filled in. The buttresses we rebuilt. Oh, there's the whole door. I'm sorry? We're not sure yet. I think it was wooden. But we'd have to look at the archival images. And you had some great ones we'd love copies of if we could get them. I don't think we have them in our archives.
In your photo, the top of the opening was more similar to the window opening. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
That's right, and that's what I'm interested in. I don't remember where that door was, unless it was closer to the dovecote, because much of the wall was overrun by, Virginia creeper. You couldn't see, but the ones that we reinstated definitely had the stones showing us. But I don't know where that one is. I'm really interested to see where that is. So we're going to try, because of the being covered, part of the problem was Virginia creeper and then other vegetation near this wall. Part of the ongoing maintenance is every 2 or 3 years have it examined, having the repointed in areas that need it, and to keep vegetation away from either side of the wall so that we don't have that climbing. As attractive as it looks, it does deteriorate the wall. I think that's just the east side. There was, I don't have before images. I didn't have access to a lot of my images this week because I was homesick. But quite a lean to it. It was very scary in some parts of this wall. So we did find that the hinges on the gate, the entrance gate, they're steel hinges that had deteriorated to the point where they couldn't be conserved, restored, or consolidated. So we had them replicated and put back into the mortar. And at some point, if there were wooden gates, we know what was there. So they could be replicated, and new hinges. The hinges are there. So just put it onto those hinges. What else can I tell you? I think that's it in a nutshell. Yes? Oh, well, I was going to say, because I don't have a lot of the images I didn't have access to, a lot of them were after pictures of the archway and the columns. If you go out and when you leave, you'll see after real image, because it's just down this. Yeah, so if you go down the driveway, before you turn to go out onto the road, look to the left behind the fence. There's still a fence. Or just walk down a very short way and you'll see the gateway to the coach house and the garden, interior garden.
Terry, if you keep this up and Therese, can you just show us, I think you already did that again, which part of the wall was restored? The first, the second part, and then what percentage of the wall still has to be restored?
Okay, the first phase was from, here's the coach house, there's the road. This is still fenced in. So the first phase was from this point, past the archways and columns, along here until this section. That parking area is just on the other side there. So that was done 2014, 2015. Last year, so you see the large collapsed areas there and there. So from here, right through around the corner to here. And you can see in one of my last slides the difference in coloring, right in the stone, the rebuild to the, and then from here to here, this is the dovecote, is undone. And so if there's a third phase, funding Nobody knows when, if. That will be along that wall, and then the dove cove.
And how many feet is that, did you say?
I'm guessing. I would say 100. I think it was the first phase was 113, so maybe not quite. 70? You see there? Okay, 70. We got a crow.
And Teresa, when we toured yesterday with Lynn and her husband Al, we saw the stone wall that went around the entire property.
Mm-hmm.
What are the plans for that?
There are no plans at all right now, only because we don't know about funding. We know what shape they're in, you know. Along the east wall, about 3 feet up, still extant. The rest is gone. Along the north wall, actually that section that's left was in pretty good shape when we did a condition assessment 3 or 4 years ago. And then on the rest of the north wall is completely gone, collapsed. There has been no conservation strategy per se. Until we have some funding, we can't make any plans, and that's council directed. So, and I'll have to say this, I think it was Carolyn here. Yeah, I think this last phase was it 800,000. Yeah, it's a very expensive process. You can imagine, and the first phase was about the same, maybe a little bit more. So, with all the other priorities, it's a difficult. Yeah.
I have one little comment.
Sure.
You're probably aware there's also the ruins of the summer house and the ruins of a little cottage are also can be seen out there somewhere. If anyone wants to see them, that's just not sure where they are.
Yes, it's been.
I hope they'll just stay. I'll show you. I was afraid that your people that were collecting rocks might have collected those too. But when I came up here last time, I realized there's still
No, they're well aware of what could be taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still there. They're still intact.
Yes.
Yesterday when we were walking, we saw the gate actually, which was at the very north property, I guess, where it comes in, and there's a little niche there where that is the mounted with a statue. Now, those walls, how would they have attached back into these walls?
So you're talking about the north wall on at the end of the alley.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would follow to the east, all along the east, and I think it goes to about here. Yeah. So it goes along, and then the wall joins here. Yeah, there's the collapse. So then that's east, goes up to the north of the property, across the north.
And was there a wall that came down the west too?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it just went along the north end of the property. I'm not sure what was on the street. You're talking about West 5th Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I can answer that.
Good,
Historical
good,
documents.
good.
I think that was more fencing, I think a fencing of various kinds. If
Uh-huh.
I'm not mistaken, the wall was more to protect the orchards and the vegetables than it was for security, right? So it wasn't meant to be to secure the whole state. I understand it was to protect the orchard and vegetables gardens.
Hey, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what the stone mason was, and is it called cobblestone?
It isn't. No, we don't know who the stonemason is. Although we did find around here mortar with with the initials in them, but it was probably from 20th century. Yeah, yeah. No image of the original stonemason. No, but I don't know, and no, it wouldn't be considered cobblestone as far as cobblestone is quite a different construction.
I'll just add one more thing. Just
Yeah.
the other day, I counted from the first city director in 1853, there were 71 stonemasons, quarrymen, and stone cutters working in Hamilton at that time, and then many more people who were builders. So it could have been anybody.
But there were initials in them, so.
Yeah, but I think it was in the later mortar. I don't think it was in the original mortar. Okay, if there's no other questions.
Terrific. Thank you.